Hey everyone, today we're going to be taking a look eating plant-based, scientific answers to your nutrition questions.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. And it's written by Dr. Shireen Kassam, who's a hematologist and plant-based nutrition expert,
Okay.
and Zara Kassam.
Okay, cool.
Looks like it's going to be pretty in-depth.
Awesome.
And yeah, we're going to dive right in and see what kind of myth-busting we can find in here.
I love a good myth busting.
Yeah, me too. So one of the things I found right off the bat that I thought was pretty interesting
Okay.
is they talk about how the countries that have the highest rates of dairy consumption also have the highest rates of bone fractures.
What?
Yeah, pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Makes you think twice about that whole got milk campaign.
Right, like I definitely grew up with that message just drilled into my head. Drink your milk, it's good for your bones.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
all that.
Exactly.
So to hear that there's actually like an inverse relationship there,
Yeah.
that's kind of shocking.
Yeah, it's interesting. And actually, the book goes into some of the evolutionary history of dairy consumption
Okay.
and how, like, it turns out that 70% of the world's population is actually lactose intolerant.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, me neither. And lactase persistence, which
Oh,
is,
yeah.
you know, the ability to digest lactose,
Right.
is a relatively recent adaptation.
Interesting.
And mostly in European populations.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that whole milk thing might need a little bit of an update.
Yeah, maybe so.
But what about protein?
Okay. Yeah, that's a big one.
Right, because we've always been told we need animal protein to be healthy.
Right. Got to get that animal protein. It's the best kind of protein.
Okay,
That's what
too.
we've always heard. So I'm curious to see what they say about that.
Yeah, so the book really digs into that and kind of dismantles that superior animal protein myth. And basically they explain that all the essential amino acids, which are like the building blocks of protein,
Right.
are present in plant foods.
Okay, so you can get everything you need from plants.
Yeah, and variety is key, of course. You
Yeah.
don't just want to be eating like one plant.
Right.
But yeah, you can get all the essential amino acids you need from...
So you don't have to worry about like, you know, I need to combine this and that like you do with some vegetarian protein sources to
Right.
make sure you're getting the full profile.
Exactly.
You can just eat a variety of plants and you're good.
Yeah, and they even talk about how lower levels of certain amino acids in plants like methionine and BCAAs might actually be a good thing.
Oh, interesting.
And there's even research that's linking plant-based protein to improved health outcomes.
Wow. So not only is it not worse for you, it might actually be better.
Yeah, it's like the unexpected hero of the nutrition world.
I love that the underdog comes
Yeah.
out on top.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it's not just about swapping out your steak for tofu. It's about understanding the science and making these informed choices
I like that.
that align with your health goals.
It's empowering.
Yeah.
To feel like you're making informed choices.
Right.
And not just following dogma. Exactly. You know, whatever the latest fad is or
Right
whatever
on.
you grew up with.
Exactly.
You're actually looking at the research and making decisions for yourself.
Yeah, so...
Eggs are interesting.
Right, because those are often touted as a health food.
Right, like the incredible edible egg.
Exactly.
All that.
So does this book scramble that perception too?
Curious to see what they have to say about that.
Well, they do acknowledge that eggs can keep you feeling full longer compared to some breakfast choices,
Okay.
but it's not necessarily unique to eggs.
Oh, okay.
Like other protein sources, especially plant-based ones like tofu,
okay.
do the same thing.
So it's not the egg itself.
Right.
It's just the protein content.
Exactly. And tofu also has some perks, like a similar protein content to eggs,
Okay.
less saturated fat, and zero cholesterol.
Ooh, tofu for the win.
Yeah, so it's not just for hippies anymore.
Right.
Okay, so now that brings up another question.
Okay.
What about dietary cholesterol?
Yeah, that's another one that's kind of been back and forth over the years.
Right. Is it bad for you? Is it not bad for you?
What's the deal with cholesterol?
Exactly.
I feel like every few years the advice changes.
Right.
So I'm really curious to hear what they say about that.
So the book does address that, and it seems like the focus has shifted from obsessing over like individual nutrients
Okay.
to looking at overall dietary patterns.
So it's not just about one thing.
Right.
It's about the big picture.
Exactly.
What are you eating consistently?
Yeah. So it's not about like, oh, if I have this one burger, I'm going to die.
Right.
It's about if you have a burger every day,
Exactly.
that's probably not so good for you.
It's all about balance and sustainability. So,
Totally. You know, you got to find something you can stick with.
right.
Not just something that's super restrictive.
Yeah.
And then you're going to fall off the wagon,
Yeah.
you know, a few weeks later.
Exactly. So it's about balance and making those sustainable choices.
I like that.
And on that note, they talk about the importance of whole grains as a cornerstone of a healthy dietary pattern.
Yeah, whole grains are great, but I feel like they have a bit of a boring reputation.
I know, right?
Like people think of them as bland and cardboardy.
Yeah, like why do they love whole grains so much?
Right, what's the big deal?
Exactly.
So I'm curious to hear how they kind of spice up the image of whole grain.
So they kind of put it like refined grains and sugar.
Yeah,
You like
yeah.
that flashy one-night stand.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You get a quick burst of energy,
Right.
and then you crash.
Yeah.
But whole grains
Yeah.
are the long-term relationship material.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
So whole grains are a keeper?
They're the one you want to settle down with.
Yeah, and they explain it's because they're packed with fiber.
Okay, yes, fiber's important.
Right. Which helps you feel full and satisfied.
Right, keeps you regular.
Exactly. And it regulates blood sugar.
Okay.
And it feeds those good bacteria in your gut.
Oh, the gut, that's another one.
I know, right?
That's so trendy these days.
Everyone's talking about the gut.
Right, like what is the deal with the gut?
I know, but it really is important.
I guess.
So explain to me, why is everyone so obsessed with gut health?
Yeah, fill me in.
So basically the gut microbiome, which is like all those trillions of bacteria
Right.
living in your digestive system.
Okay.
It's like this massive ecosystem that impacts everything.
Everything.
From digestion
Okay.
to immunity
That makes sense.
to mental health and disease prevention.
Wow, I did not realize it played that big of a role.
Yeah, so what you eat has a huge influence on the balance of those bacteria.
So we really got to be mindful of what we're putting in there.
Yeah, so we got to feed those little guys the right stuff.
I like that.
So we've got whole grains checked off the list.
Oh.
What else makes the gut microbiome happy?
What else can we feed those little guys?
So another thing that's really good for your gut is beans and legumes.
Beans. Okay, so we're talking like lentils, chickpeas, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and they're like these nutritional powerhouses. They're affordable and they're packed with nutrients.
All right, so beans, they're good for you. They're good for your wallet.
Yeah,
I'm on board.
but I know what you're thinking.
Oh, yeah.
What about the toots?
Right, because beans have a bit of a reputation.
They do.
So I'm curious, does the book address that?
They do. So they actually talk about how soaking beans before you cook them can help minimize gas and bloating
Interesting.
and also gradually increasing your intake.
So don't go from 0 to 60.
Right.
With the beans.
Exactly.
Start slow.
Yeah, ease your way in. And they also debunk those persistent myths about soy.
Okay, because I feel like soy gets demonized a lot.
Yeah, they make it really clear that soy is a healthy addition to any diet.
Okay, so no need to fear the soy.
All right, so we got beans covered,
All right, what's next?
but beans aren't exactly the most glamorous food.
Right. They're not exactly exciting.
Yeah, so what about something a little fancier? Yeah, so the book also dives into the world of nuts and seeds. And they're not just for snacking. They're actually really good for you.
In what way?
Well, nuts are full of healthy fats, fiber, and antioxidants.
Okay.
And they've been linked to a lower risk of heart disease and other chronic conditions.
Wow. So nuts for heart health.
Exactly.
I like it.
What about seeds?
What do they have to say about seeds?
So they talk about how seeds are like tiny nutritional bombs.
Okay, I like that.
And each different type of seed has its own unique nutritional profile.
So like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds,
Okay.
flax seeds.
Exactly.
They all have their own superpowers.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we're loading up on whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds.
Okay. Sounds like a pretty good grocery list so far.
Yeah, but what about oil?
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
I know, right? Because in the plant-based community, there are differing opinions about added oils.
Right. So is it good for you? Is it bad for you?
Exactly.
Does it depend on the type of oil?
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what they say about that.
So it's not quite like a culinary civil war, but there's definitely some debate going on. But the book highlights the benefits of extra virgin olive oil, especially its positive impact on heart health.
So olive oil's a good guy.
Yeah, olive oil is good.
Very
However,
nice.
they also debunk the myth of coconut oil as a health food.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought coconut oil was supposed to be good for you.
Yeah, I know, me too.
So what's the deal with coconut oil?
So they explain how coconut oil's high saturated fat content can actually negatively impact cholesterol levels.
So it's not the health halo
Right.
that it's been made out to be.
Yeah, exactly. So olive oil, maybe coconut oil, not so much.
Got it.
Okay, so now let's talk about the essential nutrients
Go ahead.
that we usually get from animal products.
Right, because that's a big question
Yeah.
for people who are considering going plant-based.
Right.
Like, can you really get everything you need?
Exactly. And one of the big ones is vitamin B12.
Yeah, that's one I've heard about.
Right.
You need to supplement with B12.
Yeah, so the book addresses this and explains that B12 supplementation is essential
Oh.
on a plant-based diet.
So that's true.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
What?
Even animals that are raised for food require B12 supplementation.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So the animals are getting supplements.
Yeah.
And then we're eating the animals.
Right.
And then we still need to supplement.
Pretty much.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So it really challenges that whole idea that we need to eat animals to get certain nutrients.
It really does make you think.
Yeah.
So where does the B12 come from originally?
It's produced by bacteria, not by plants.
So even the animals aren't making it themselves.
Yes, so the supplements are just getting passed down the food chain.
That's wild.
Yeah, but the book does discuss different forms of B12 supplements and dosing schedules to make sure you're getting what you need.
So they give you the practical information you need to actually make sure you're covered.
Exactly. Okay, so B12 is covered.
Okay.
What about anti-nutrients?
Yes, anti-nutrients, another big buzzword that I hear a lot.
So explain that one to me.
What are anti-nutrients and why should we be concerned about them?
So anti-nutrients are basically compounds that are found in plant foods that can interfere with the absorption of certain nutrients.
So they block the good stuff.
Kinda. But the book explains that these effects are often overblown.
So it's not as big of a deal as people make it out to be.
Right, and simple cooking methods can minimize any potential issues.
So like soaking your beans or cooking your grains properly.
Exactly. Okay, that makes sense.
So it seems like a lot of the fears around plant-based eating are based on like misinformation or outdated ideas.
So this book is kind of like busting myths left and right. I'm loving it.
It's really empowering.
Yeah, because knowledge is power.
Right.
When you know the facts, you can make the best decisions for yourself.
Exactly. Before we wrap up this part, I want to talk about the big picture.
All right, let's get to the good stuff.
So what does the book say about plant-based diets and preventing serious diseases?
Yeah, because that's ultimately what we all care about, right?
Right. We want to be healthy.
Lives.
Exactly. So what does the book have to say about that?
So get ready to be amazed, because this book presents a mountain of evidence that supports a plant-based diet for preventing and treating chronic diseases.
So we're talking things like heart disease,
Yeah.
type 2 diabetes, cancer.
Even some types of cancer.
Wow. So they're saying a plant-based diet can actually help reverse these conditions.
The research suggests that,
That's incredible.
yeah, and they even go as far as to say that a plant-based diet can be as effective as medication
Really?
in treating certain conditions.
Wow.
Yeah, and they explain how plant-based diets help reduce inflammation and oxidative stress,
Okay.
which are major players in the development of chronic diseases.
So these are like the root causes
Right.
of a lot of these chronic illnesses.
Exactly.
And a plant-based diet can help address those root causes.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I know this is some serious stuff.
I need a minute to process all this.
Right, and we're just getting started.
Oh man, bring on part 2.
We're still digging into eating plant-based scientific answers to your nutrition questions.
Yeah.
And honestly, my mind is blown by all these health benefits we talked about in part 1.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that really stood out to me was how plant-based diets can actually help prevent chronic diseases.
Right. That's huge.
Yeah. So
Oh.
can we dig into that a little deeper? Like, how does that actually work?
Absolutely. So the book really emphasizes how plant-based diets work on like a cellular level
Okay.
to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. And these are 2 major factors that drive a lot of chronic diseases.
So remind me, what exactly is inflammation again?
So inflammation is basically your body's natural response to injury.
Right, like when you get a cut or something.
Exactly. It's like your body calling in the troops when there's a threat,
Huh.
and it's a vital part of healing.
So it's a good thing.
It is in the short term, but when inflammation becomes chronic, that's when it can become a problem.
So it's like those troops never stand down,
Exactly. They're just constantly on high alert.
and they can end up damaging healthy tissues and organs.
Right, and that can contribute to things like heart disease, arthritis, and even cancer.
So it's like inflammation is a friend with benefits.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Great for the short term, but potentially harmful if things get too serious.
Exactly. Plant-based diets, with their abundance of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds, can help keep that inflammation in check.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about oxidative stress?
So oxidative stress is a little bit harder to visualize, but think of it like rust forming on a car,
Or-
except it's happening inside your body.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah, so basically our cells are constantly exposed to free radicals.
Free radicals.
These are unstable molecules that can damage our DNA and accelerate aging.
So they're like little troublemakers running around.
Exactly, damage. And antioxidants, which are found in abundance in plant foods, act like rust-proofing agents. They neutralize those free radicals and protect our cells.
So it's like plant-based diets are giving our bodies a shield against those damaging free radicals.
Exactly. And The book provides a ton of research to back up this idea, with studies showing how effective these diets can be in preventing and treating specific conditions.
Okay, so let's get specific then. What does the book say about heart disease?
So heart disease is where the evidence is particularly strong.
Okay.
And the book highlights the work of Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn,
Okay.
who showed that a low-fat, plant-based diet could actually reverse heart disease.
Like undo the damage that's already been done.
You got it. His research showed that a plant-based diet could not only halt the progression of heart disease, but actually clear out those clogged arteries.
That's incredible because heart disease is a leading cause of death globally.
It is.
So if this is true, it's a huge deal.
It's massive, and it's not just one study. The book cites numerous studies showing that plant-based diets can significantly reduce the risk of heart disease, lower blood pressure, and improve cholesterol levels.
Okay, so heart disease is one. What about type 2 diabetes? Can plant-based eating help with that too?
Absolutely. The book makes a really strong case for using plant-based diets to prevent and manage type 2 diabetes.
Okay, how so?
Well, it explains how these diets, with their emphasis on fiber and complex carbohydrates, help regulate blood sugar levels, which is crucial for managing diabetes.
And I'm guessing that's a stark contrast to the typical Western diet,
Yeah.
which is loaded with refined carbs and added sugars.
Exactly. Those refined carbs and sugars are like setting off fireworks in your bloodstream. They cause rapid spikes in blood sugar, putting a strain on your pancreas and increasing the risk of insulin resistance, which is a hallmark of type 2 diabetes.
So in a way, plant-based diets are giving the pancreas a break.
Precisely. And the book highlights studies showing that plant-based diets can improve insulin sensitivity, reduce the need for medication, and even in some cases put type 2 diabetes into remission.
Remission, does that mean the diabetes is essentially gone?
It's not a cure, but it means blood sugar levels are back to a normal range without relying on medication.
That's pretty remarkable.
It is.
Okay, so we've got heart disease and type 2 diabetes. What about cancer? Does the book address that as well?
It does. And while the research on plant-based diets and cancer is still developing, there's growing evidence that these diets can offer protection. The book highlights studies linking plant-based diets to a lower risk of certain cancers, like colorectal, breast, and prostate cancer.
But cancer is such a complex disease. How can diet really make a difference?
Well, plant-based diets are packed with phytochemicals.
Phytochemicals.
These are powerful compounds that have anti-cancer properties.
So they're like tiny ninjas fighting off cancer cells.
I love that analogy.
They help protect cells from damage, inhibit tumor growth, and even bolster the immune system's ability to fight off cancer.
Exactly. So it's like adding an extra layer of armor to our bodies.
Exactly. While more research is needed to fully understand the complex relationship between diet and cancer, the evidence presented in the book is definitely promising.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of potential there.
Okay, so it sounds like plant-based diets have this incredible potential for improving our health.
Right.
But let's be realistic. Are there any downsides to eating this way?
That's a valid question.
Yeah, like what about nutrient deficiencies?
That's something I hear a lot.
Yeah, me too. So does the book address that?
It does, and it explains that with some planning and awareness of key nutrients, a plant-based diet can provide everything your body needs to thrive.
Okay, so it's all about being mindful and making smart choices.
Exactly. And the book provides a ton of information on specific nutrients that plant-based eaters need to pay attention to, like vitamin B12, iron, and calcium.
Okay, let's break those down then. We already talked about how vitamin B12 supplementation is essential for plant-based eaters.
Right.
But why is that? Why isn't it found naturally in plant foods?
So vitamin B12 is produced by bacteria, not plants.
Okay,
So even animals raised for meat have B12 supplements added to their feed.
so essentially whether you're eating meat or plants, the B12 is often originating from those supplements.
That's right. It highlights the importance of understanding where our nutrients come from.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the book gives clear guidelines on B12 supplementation for plant-based eaters, so you can make sure you're getting enough.
Okay, B12 check. What about iron? Isn't that a concern for people who don't eat meat?
It can be iron from plant sources, known as non-heme iron, isn't absorbed as easily as iron from animal sources, which is heme iron. But the book offers practical tips for boosting iron absorption, like pairing iron-rich foods with those high in vitamin C.
So like having some orange slices with your spinach salad.
Exactly. The book also stresses the importance of choosing iron-rich plant foods, like lentils, beans, and tofu.
Got it. So iron is covered. Now, let's talk about calcium. Didn't we all learn in kindergarten that dairy is the best source of calcium?
That's another myth the book debunks. Remember those high rates of bone fractures in countries with high dairy consumption?
Oh yeah.
Well, it turns out that plant-based foods can be excellent sources of calcium, too.
So what are the plant-based calcium all-stars?
Leafy greens like kale and collard greens are great, as are fortified plant milks, tofu, and some types of beans.
Okay, so you've got options.
You do.
That's good to know. It seems like you can get all the nutrients you need from a plant-based diet.
Yeah, with a little planning and mindfulness.
But what about protein? That's the one everyone always asks about.
It's a valid question, especially in our protein-obsessed culture. But as we discussed earlier, you can absolutely get enough protein from plant-based foods. It's all about choosing the right foods and having a variety of them.
So it's not just about tofu and tempeh, although those are great sources.
Right, don't forget about beans, lentils, quinoa nuts, and seeds. They're all packed with protein.
Okay, so it's about the overall dietary pattern, not just individual foods.
Exactly.
Got it. Now let's get practical. Isn't eating plant-based expensive and time-consuming?
That's a common misconception. The book acknowledges that pre-made plant-based meals can be pricey.
Okay, yeah, I've seen those in the grocery store.
But it emphasizes that building your diet around whole, unprocessed plant foods can actually be quite affordable.
So it's like anything else, convenience comes at a premium.
Exactly, and the book offers tips for making plant-based eating budget-friendly, like cooking at home, buying in bulk, and opting for seasonal produce.
Those are great tips. What about the time factor? I'm already juggling a million things. Will I really have time to cook plant-based meals?
I hear you, but the book offers strategies for making plant-based cooking efficient, like prepping meals in advance, using time-saving kitchen tools, and finding recipes that fit your lifestyle.
So you can make it work.
You can.
Okay, what about those tricky social situations like eating out with friends or going to family gatherings?
I know those can be tough, but the book offers tips for navigating them, like checking out restaurant menus online beforehand, bringing a plant-based dish to potlucks, and politely but firmly advocating for your dietary choices.
So it's all about communication and being prepared.
Exactly. Remember, this is your health journey, and you have the right to make choices that support your well-being.
That's great advice. We've covered so much ground already.
No, it's a lot.
There's been a lot of talk about diet and immunity lately. What does the book say about that connection?
So the book explains how plant-based diets, with their abundance of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, can support a healthy immune system.
Okay.
It makes sense when you consider the role of a healthy immune system in fighting off infections. Plant-based diets, with their nutrient density and immune-boosting properties, can equip our bodies to mount a strong defense.
This is groundbreaking stuff. It's not just about chronic diseases, but potentially infectious diseases too.
Exactly. It really highlights the power of food as medicine.
I love that food as medicine.
Yeah.
This is all so amazing. The more we learn about plant-based diets, the more we realize their incredible potential to improve our health and well-being in so many ways.
I completely agree. And we're not done yet. There's so much more to explore.
The final part of our deep dive into eating plant-based.
I'm excited to wrap up this exploration.
Me too. And in this last part, we're going to be taking a look at the bigger picture. Like, we've talked about all the health benefits. We've busted some myths, addressed those nutrient concerns. But this book goes beyond personal health, right?
It does.
It also looks at the impact of our food choices on the planet and animal welfare.
Definitely. Those are important considerations too.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with sustainability, because I feel like everyone's talking about how plant-based diets are better for the environment.
Right. It's a hot topic these days.
Yeah. So what does the science actually say about that?
Well, the book presents some pretty compelling data. For example, did you know that animal agriculture is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, and water pollution?
So our love of burgers and bacon is taking a toll on the planet.
Yeah, you could say that. The book argues that shifting towards a more plant-centric food system could really benefit the environment.
Okay, but hold on. Growing plants uses resources too, right?
You're right. Growing anything takes resources, but the environmental footprint of plant-based foods is significantly smaller than that of animal-based foods.
So like how much smaller are we talking?
Well, for example, it takes way less land, water, and energy to produce a pound of lentils compared to a pound of beef.
So it's about efficiency, like getting more nutritional bang for our environmental buck.
Exactly. The book highlights just how inefficient animal agriculture is. It takes a lot of resources to raise animals for food, and a significant portion of those resources are essentially lost along the way.
It sounds like we're pouring a ton of resources into a leaky bucket.
That's a great analogy. The book argues that if we focused more on plant-based food sources, we could feed a lot more people more sustainably.
That makes a lot of sense. So plant-based diets for a healthier planet. What about the ethical side of things? Because I know animal welfare is a big motivator for a lot of people. people who are choosing a plant-based lifestyle.
Absolutely. And the book definitely doesn't shy away from these ethical considerations. It discusses the harsh realities of factory farming, where animals are often confined, subjected to painful procedures, and denied their natural behaviors.
Yeah, it's not easy to face those realities, but I think it's important to understand the impact our food choices have on animals.
I agree. The book makes a powerful case for reducing our reliance on animal agriculture, not just for the planet, but also for the well-being of animals.
Okay, so we've got sustainability, ethics, and personal health. Is there anything else?
Well, the book also touches on the social justice aspects of plant-based eating. It points out that communities of color and low-income communities often have limited access to fresh, affordable, and nutritious food.
It's that whole food desert issue, isn't it? Where people are surrounded by junk food but lack access to healthy options.
And the book suggests that plant-based diets with their emphasis on affordable staples like beans, lentils, and grains can be a powerful tool for addressing food insecurity and promoting health equity.
Wow, so plant-based diets are good for the planet, good for animals, and good for social justice.
It seems like a win-win-win.
It really does. It seems like they can make a positive impact on so many levels.
I think that's what makes this book so compelling. It shows how interconnected these seemingly separate issues are and how our food choices ripple outward, impacting the world around us.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm honestly feeling inspired to make some changes in my own life.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress. Even small changes can make a big difference.
So if someone's listening to this and feeling a little overwhelmed, where should they start?
That's a good question.
Like, what's one simple step they could take today to move towards a more plant-based lifestyle?
I would say the easiest and most impactful step is simply adding more plant-based foods to your plate. Start with one meal a day, maybe breakfast or lunch, and experiment with different plant-based recipes.
Okay.
There are so many delicious and satisfying options out there. You're bound to find things you...
That's great advice. And remember, you don't have to go all in overnight. It's a journey, and it's about finding what works best for you and your life.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive into eating plant-based scientific answers to your nutrition questions.
It really has. I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
I know, right?
Yeah.
There's so much to learn and explore.
But hopefully this has given our listeners a good starting point.
Definitely. So everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of plant-based health.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those questions coming.